Welcome to Bloomsbury Central Baptist Church, this beautiful oasis of calm and holiness right in the centre of one of the world's greatest cities. It is an absolute delight to have such an august and beautiful bunch of people who have come here to be with us to celebrate this blue plaque that you'll be getting to see shortly. My name is the Reverend Dr. Simon Woodman, and I'm the minister here at Bloomsbury Baptist, and I'm representing the congregation, but we do have a few of our trustees here as well, so hopefully you'll get to meet some of those. Just a couple of practicalities, as we always have to begin with such. There's toilets on either side, and there's an accessible toilet in the foyer, and there are further toilets downstairs, should you need those. Those of you who were given wristbands on your way in, you are invited to come downstairs for part 2 once we're finished up here, and hopefully you'll be able to do that. The colours of the wristband, by the way, are irrelevant. They're just different colours. Particularly want to welcome a number of our guests. Want to mention the US Ambassador Jane Hartley, Nubian Jack, whose name will be on the plaque as well, as he's been the sponsoring body for that, and he'll say more about that shortly. From Camden Council, we're pleased to welcome councillors Nadia, Shah and Sabrina Francis, the Mayor of Camden, Councillor Nazma, Rahman, and the Chief Exec of Camden Council, Jenny Rowlands. We're going to be welcoming online Linn Washington and Patrick Duff, who will be speaking to us later, and Jonathan Eig, who has just written what surely has to be the definitive biography of Martin Luther King, and he's going to be giving the keynote address downstairs in part 2. So why this building? Why are we here? This building was built in 1848 by a chap called Sir Samuel Morton Peto, who built incredible buildings. He built a lot of what's now the Houses of Parliament. He built Trafalgar Square and Nelson's Column. He was a Baptist, and he said that the Baptist expression of the Christian faith should stand at the intersection of wealth and poverty. For him, Christianity was no middle-class thing. It needed to be making a difference to the most disempowered, the most impoverished people in the city. And he chose this location for the church that he built because it faced all the wealth of New Bloomsbury, but it backed onto the St Giles Rookery, which was at that point the worst slum in London. I mean, it's now the headquarters for Google and YouTube, but times change. And from its very beginning, the church faced into poverty, those who were marginalised, those who were excluded. And the basement here, where some of us will be going later, when it was first created, was running a school for the kids from the slums because there was no universal education in those days. Well, that basement has been beautifully renovated, and I'm pleased also to welcome representatives from our partner builder Overbury and the architect T.P. Bennett, and you can marvel at what they've created down there when you get down there later. But we're also going to be treated to some performance by Impact Dance, who are now a tenant here in the building and a partner with us. They've got a dance studio upstairs, and they're going to be performing this wonderful performance of a dance, Journeys to Justice. But anyway, come forward with me 3 years from the founding of the church. It's the Great Exhibition in London of 1851. Lots of visiting Americans would be coming over to London for the Great Exhibition, and they would be wanting to come and see the amazing new Baptist chapel in central London. But we took an advert in the Times, and we said visiting Americans are welcome to Bloomsbury Central Baptist Church unless you are supportive of the fugitive slave laws in the States, in which case you are denied access to the Lord's table here. So within 3 years, we were excommunicating slave owners. And that trajectory of taking a bold public stand on issues of justice has remained with us. And that leads 100 years later to the 29th of October 1961, and this firebrand Baptist pastor from the States, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is coming to London to speak at an anti-apartheid rally because he knows that injustice anywhere in the world is unacceptable. And so he's been doing all this work in the United States, and now he's turning his attention to the evils of apartheid in South Africa. And he's invited to come and speak here, and he preaches his wonderful wonderful sermon, The Three Dimensions of the Complete Life, here in this auditorium on that evening. And in a moment, we're going to hear his voice again. Sadly, we don't have a recording of him on that night, but we do have a recording of him giving the same sermon 3 months later. So he would have been using the same notes. It would have been the same sermon. So we're hearing that again. We've got an edited 6-minute clip of that. Just want to also note that Martin Luther King Jr.'s son, Dexter Scott King, who was born in 1961, the year his dad came here, he sadly died this week. And we want to have maybe just a moment of silence as we then go into the sermon to recognise that loss of that great person, Martin Luther King's son. But we'll have a moment of silence and then we'll hear the great preacher's voice.
So in describing the city in the 21st chapter of the book of Revelation, John says this: the length and the breadth and the height of it are equal. In other words, this new city of God, this city of ideal humanity, is not an unbalanced entity, but it is complete on all sides. Now, John is saying something quite significant here. But what John is really saying is this, that life at its best and life as it should be is a life that is complete on all sides. So there are 3 dimensions of any complete life to which we can fitly give the words of this text: length, breadth, and height. Now the length of life, as we shall use it here, is not its duration, not its longevity, but it is the push of a life forward to achieve its personal ends and ambitions. It is the inward concern for one's own welfare. The breadth of life is the outward concern for the welfare of others. The height of life is the upward reach for God. These are the 3 dimensions of a complete life. And let us begin with the length of life. And I said that this is the dimension in which the individual is concerned with developing his inner powers. In a sense, this is the selfish dimension of life. And that is such a thing as rational and healthy self-interest. If we are concerned about other selves, we must also be concerned about our own selves. This dimension of length also means that we have a legitimate responsibility to set out to discover what we are made for, to set out to discover our life's work, the center of our talent. And then after we discover this, we have a responsibility to do that life's work with all of the strength and all of the power and all of the commitment that we can muster up. We should do it so well that nobody could do it better. The individual must realize that no matter what this life's work happens to be, if it is for the upbuilding of humanity, it has cosmic significance. We must not stop here. Some people never get beyond this first dimension of life. They're often brilliant people. They develop their inner powers to a great extent. But they live as if nobody else lives in the world. That is nothing more tragic than to find an individual bogged down in the length of life, devoid of the breath. Now, the breath of life is say to you this morning that an individual has not begun to live until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. All life is interrelated. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Many people never get beyond these first two dimensions, and so they seek to live life without a sky. But if life is to be complete, I would suggest that the individual must rise up beyond his self-interest, even beyond humanity, and discover the eternal God whose purpose changes not. And so this dimension gives us a bit of faith in the future. It gives us a sense of cosmic companionship as we struggle to grapple with the problems of life and the problems of the universe. Before the victory for brotherhood is won, some may have to get scarred up, but we shall overcome. Before the victory for justice is won, some may be thrown in jail. Still, we shall overcome. Before the victory for brotherhood is won, some will have to be misunderstood, but we shall overcome. Why? Because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Love yourself is by that you mean rational and healthy self-interest. You are commanded to do that. That is the length of life. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. You are commanded to do that. That is the breath of life. But never forget that that is the first and even greater commandment. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. That is the height of life. And with this, when this is developed, the individual lives a complete life.
Well, if only I could preach like that here. My goodness. So I'm going to welcome Nubian Jack, who's behind the plaque, who's going to come and take us through. Jack, where are you? There we are.
Thank you. Wow, what a wonderful speech that was. Absolutely incredible that in this very room we could actually witness the God that is Dr. Martin Luther King. It was the very same sermon, but of course that was a recording done in the United States. Welcome everybody to this momentous occasion. It's indeed a pleasure to have you all here. I'm so proud to be installing the very first, or my organisation of course, to be installing the very first plaque in the capital this year, and it happens to be to the wonderful Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, so I'm particularly proud about that. I'm also proud that it's the very first time a blue plaque has been given permission to be installed in an ecclesiastical building, ladies and gentlemen, so that is a historic first as well, in English heritage. That clap goes out to English heritage and of course to God, because when I put the application together and I presented it to Simon, he knew perfectly well we weren't going to get permission from English Heritage. But credit to him, he played along as if it was, a formality, and he gave it away, because when I told him that we got permission, he was shocked. So it's indeed a wonderful pleasure. It's also great to see such a wonderful, dispersed, diverse group of people representing different disparate groups. So again, thank you all for coming out today. First, some housekeeping rules, Simon. I don't know if that's been done, but ladies and gentlemen, just to keep it brief, there's a toilet on my right and there's a toilet on my left at the back there. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce, first of all, I must say, this project has been put together, it's a triumvirate. It's Camden Council, of course, Bloomsbury Baptist Church, and the Nubian Jack Community Trust. And I'd like to welcome to the stage the representation for Camden Council. Her name is Nadia Shah. She's the leading Camden Council's equality, diversity person, and she is going to give us an opening speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Madam Mayor, Your Excellency, thank you for all joining us on this historic occasion. And today is truly a momentous day for Camden as we gather here to celebrate and commemorate the legacy of a man whose impact transcends time and borders. We're here to unveil the first blue plaque dedicated to Martin Luther King Jr. in the United Kingdom, and this is a symbol of our shared commitment to equality, justice, and community strength. Reflecting upon the significance of this event, we were reminded of the powerful sermon delivered by Martin Luther King here at the Bloomsbury Baptist Church in 1961. His words echoed through the hallowed halls of the church and continue to inspire and resonate with us today. It's a testament to the enduring power of his message, and we stand here years and years later, recognizing his contribution to the global struggle for civil rights. This plaque not only marks a physical presence, but also signifies our dedication to commemorating pioneering individuals who have shaped the course of history. It stands as a beacon of remembrance for the tireless efforts of Martin Luther King in advocating for justice, equality, and human rights. Camden has been at the forefront of initiatives to foster diversity, inclusion, and representation in public spaces. Today's ceremony is a testament to the strides we've taken as a community to acknowledge and celebrate the diversity that enriches our lives. As we unveil this blue plaque, let it be a symbol of our commitment to continue fostering an inclusive and equitable society for generations to come. In honouring Martin Luther King Jr., we honour the principles of equality and justice that form the bedrock of our community strength here that we work so hard for in Camden. Let this plaque serve as a constant reminder that no matter the challenges we face, the spirit of those who championed the cause of justice continues to guide and to inspire us. Thank you all for being a part of this historic moment, and let us reaffirm our commitment to building a community that cherishes diversity, embraces inclusion, and stands united against injustice.
Fantastic. Thank you, Councillor Shah. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not easy making history. You have to be stubborn. You have to have self-belief. You have to ruffle a few feathers. You have to be a disruptor. You have to be disliked. All of that applied to Martin Luther King before he became canonized as the saint that he was. And actually it applies to me. This is my 96th plaque. It is my 9th plaque in... Thank you. Thank you. I'll be collecting collections later, so put your money where your mouth is. It's absolutely impossible to conceive when we first started doing this project that we would be approaching our iconic number of 100. We've done several people along the way. We've worked with the American Embassy. Last time we worked together, actually, we did a tribute to Frederick Douglass, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'd like to now do is call to the stage Ambassador Jane Hartley, representing the Embassy of the United States.
Hello, everyone. Reverend Simon Woodman, Councillor Shah and Francis, Mr. Jonathan Ige, and our fellow guests, speakers and performers, including Mr. Anabudo and everyone at Impact Dance. So today, we honor the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr., a man whose words and deeds accomplished nothing less than truly the elevation of the human race. A man whose words were once spoken here at the Bloomsbury Central Baptist Church on a Sunday morning in 1961, the first time he ever preached in London. His life and his legacy have moved so many people in our country, and clearly the same is true here in Bloomsbury. Only a few years ago, you held a 60th anniversary celebration of that very special Sunday, where a few parishioners still recalled some of the messages he imparted that day. And I believe that we need Dr. King's message today just as much as we did back then. The words he preached 6 decades ago are just as true right now. In his speeches and in his writings, he urged us to expand opportunity for everyone, to create good jobs with fair wages in safe neighborhoods. He asked us to expand our moral imagination and show compassion for the less fortunate, because as people, we are tied in a single garment of destiny. He told us that the suffering of others was important, not just to them, but to us, because injustice everywhere is a threat, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And maybe most of all, he pushed us to pull down the barriers between people of different races, of different religion, of different classes. He believed in a better society where we judged people not on their background or their wealth or their ethnicity, but always, always on the content of their character. And when it came to creating such a society, he told us, please don't wait. Because in his words, wait almost always means never. He told us instead about the fierce urgency of now. Think about that, the fierce urgency of now. He kept relentlessly pushing for justice. And in doing so, Dr. King made America, frankly, a much better country, a much better place, and changed the course of our history. And yet, it's also true that 6 decades after Dr. King declared, "I have a dream," we are still struggling to overcome the prejudice and inequalities that compelled Dr. King to say those words. So as we celebrate his holiday and commemorate his time here in London, let us also think about how we can carry his message of justice, of equality forward. How can we expand opportunity and fight poverty? How can we make our countries more free, more fair, more just? There's no formal record of what Dr. King said in his sermon here all those years ago, although we heard a piece of one that was quite similar. And the people that I've talked to here, the men and women who were there and remember him talking, mentioned that he talked about the 3 dimensions of life: length, breadth, and height. And by length, he meant that we should develop our own individual talents to the fullest, to educate ourselves and to dedicate ourselves to our careers or whatever our craft may be. By breadth, he meant that we should look beyond ourselves and have a concern for the welfare of others and the welfare of our community. And by height, he meant the awareness that there is always something greater than us. And here, in this very church, we have our height. We know that there are forces and institutions that definitely, truly are bigger than us. And it is not my place to tell you how to develop your own length, how to focus on yourself. That is for each of us to do on our own. But one thing I think we can all think about in honor of Dr. King is breadth. How we can get involved, how we can improve the welfare of others. And maybe it's through your church, maybe this very church, or through your community or your school, or even your government. But I do know we won't change anything if we don't get involved. So concern for the welfare of others, that was at the core of Dr. King's message. It's what it means to be a good neighbor, to be a good friend, and very importantly, in these difficult days, to be a good citizen. So if we can do a little more this year to care for our friends, to care for our neighbors, to care for our fellow citizens, we will honor Dr. King's legacy. We will bring his dream much closer to reality. And we will prove what Dr. King once said, that while the arc of the moral universe is very long, it bends toward justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really lovely to see. We have the full TV networks out today. We have ITV, we have BBC, we have City News, we have ISAM streaming around the world. So those who are not here will be able to share in this wonderful historic occasion. It's also lovely to see some esteemed people in the audience. Lenny Henry, ladies and gentlemen, over there. Professor Gus John, of course, Dr. Margaret Busby, Lee Jasper, Nick Kareem, the wonderful Rani, my beautiful trustee, and the list goes on. So we're now going to be joined by two also esteemed guests from the United States. Linn Washington from Temple University and Patrick Duff, who contributed, as we'll hear later, to Jonathan Eague's research. So Linn, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Jack. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're a beautiful man. It's lovely to see you. What time of day is it there?
It's the morning.
It's morning. Surprise, surprise. I think you're 5 hours behind. Yes, okay. So thank you so much. We did a plaque last year to Dr. Martin Luther King. I'll leave Patrick to elaborate on that a little bit, but can you tell us about the impact of Dr. Martin Luther King's speech currently on the United States? So I'm specifically referencing the I Have a Dream speech.
Yes, thank you, Jack, and thank you for inviting me to this historic occasion. As we all know, King had a tremendous impact and influence. And one of the things that so often gets missed is the connection. The very day that Dr. Martin Luther King delivered that fabled I Have a Dream speech, there was an end to the bus boycott in Bristol, England, where people were trying to have fair employment practices. It's important that this recognition that you're doing today is happening because King's legacy, his very legacy, is under attack in so many ways here in the United States. There's an array of efforts to block equity and inclusion and diversity, and it even gets down into book banning. When we look at Dr. King's speech, that paragraph, that seminal paragraph of "I have a dream and I wish that my children will be judged by the content of the character and not the color of their skin." Well, the paragraph immediately before and the paragraph immediately after, Dr. King was talking about deprivations in two states, Mississippi and Alabama. And when we look at Alabama, one of the seminal accomplishments of Dr. King was the Voting Rights Act. And there was a Supreme Court decision based on a case out of Alabama a couple of years ago that gutted key provisions of the Voting Rights Act. And when we look at the efforts to restrict the rights of women to choose, that case came out of Mississippi. So there's a lot of work still to be done. And I would like to conclude with a little sentence from Dr. King's famous 1963 speech during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. He says, "Now is the time to make justice a reality for all of God's children." And we'd like to thank you, Jack, for coming over last year and placing a plaque at the church in downtown Philadelphia where King heard a speech that committed him to Gandhi's nonviolence. And that speech happened a few months after King's very first protest that took place in Mapleshade, New Jersey, which my colleague Patrick Duff will elaborate more on. Thank you very much, and kudos to everybody there who is making this event a reality.
Thank you so much, Linn. Thank you. Very, very clever. He answered all 5 questions in one question. That was genius. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, now we have a very interesting person, ladies and gentlemen. One of the most interesting person I know, Patrick Duff. I spent a lot of time with him and his family when he was in the United States last year. Patrick, how are you? Right, we can't hear you. Can you?
I'm fantastic. Am I off mute?
Yeah, you're off mute. Fantastic. You're looking very good, bro.
I feel good, man. I'm alive. I'm 2.5 years after beating cancer, and I feel like, I just feel, that speech that King did, he talked about discovering what we were made for. It's interesting because that's exactly what I want to talk about today.
Perfect. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this man is a very interesting person. He's an author, he is an activist, he's a filmmaker, producer, and he's a disruptor, and he's actually a civil rights activist, something he does play down. He's also, in my opinion, one of the most, the most global authority on the young Martin Luther King, and we did a tribute to the young Martin Luther King last February. So Patrick, can you tell us a little bit about the young Martin Luther King and the troubles you've had in trying to get his accomplishments, his foray into activism memorialized in the United States?
Absolutely. So about a decade ago, 9 years and 9 months ago, I began a search into the first civil rights battle that Martin Luther King had ever been involved in. It was very little written about in any biographies, just a blurb here and there. And I found a couple articles. Interestingly, one of the articles was written by Linn in 1986. And it was about this incident that took place in Maple Shade that people didn't even realize was true. It was almost like a myth in the area. So I decided that I would take it upon myself to try and memorialize this event where Dr. Martin Luther King's first sit-in took place in Maple Shade, New Jersey on June 12th of 1950, some 5 years prior to the Montgomery bus boycott. And just an aside, when I contacted Dr. Lewis Baldwin about this and gave him this information, who is one of the greatest historians on King, he said that this now opens a new chapter into the life of Dr. Martin Luther King. And I want to say this because when I talk about discovering what you're made for, sometimes you don't discover it until a little later in life. I was a high school dropout. I never thought I could even read a whole book, let alone write a book. I surely never thought I'd be in a book writing about Martin Luther King or changing the history and correcting some of the history of the greatest civil rights leader in the world. But here I am, and I did. And not only am I in The Seminarian, which is written by Patrick Cllr, which actually has a picture of the house in Camden in the book. That's a house in Camden, New Jersey, where Dr. Martin Luther King planned his first civil rights battle.
Amazing, amazing. Amazing. Patrick, Patrick, I was just going to say, fantastic. I just want to ask one other question very briefly, if you may. We're in the church that was twinned with the first Unitarian church in Philadelphia, I'm right, where we also installed the plaque to Martin Luther King, the correct place where he delivered or learnt his speech on nonviolent activism. Can you briefly tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yes, so what's interesting is that house that I showed you, I tried to get that house placed in the New Jersey Historic Register in 2015, and it's still not placed on the registry till today. It's just sitting there. It's actually a burned out shell that caught on fire. After the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection denied that application, I went into discovery mode again and actually located and identified, which was unknown prior to my identification of this, the actual date, location, and time of the speech that convinced Dr. Martin Luther King to take up the methods of nonviolence that was delivered by Dr. Mordecai Johnson. The history books had said that the speech, they literally guessed when it took place. They said it might have taken place between January and March, or March and May of 1950, but it actually took place on November 19th of 1950, where Dr. Mordecai Johnson delivered the speech at the First Unitarian Church. And the first ever book to recognize that is Jonathan Ives' book, who actually has a couple paragraphs about the church and also about the Maple Shade incident. And I really want to thank him for elaborating more on the Maple Shade incident and taking my advice to do so, because I do think that I think it deserves a whole book, and that's what I'm doing now, writing that book. But Jack, can I say something very quickly?
Sure, very quickly, yeah.
So when I started this project, I had to go speak at a city council meeting in Maple Shade, New Jersey. And 2 nights prior to that, my son had little spots all over him, and basically we thought he had leukemia.
Right.
The night prior to him getting a bone marrow aspiration to see if he had leukemia, I had to go to this council meeting and speak that I had already promised to be at, but I didn't know my son was going to be so sick. So I went home that day and I prayed to God that to take the cancer from my son and to put it in me if he could, and that I would make sure that I finished this project, that I would make sure that this situation was known, that Dr. King's first civil rights incident wouldn't go just by the wayside. And the next day, his bone marrow aspiration came back clear. We have no idea how. He just got better all of a sudden. And as I said, 2.5 years ago, I found I had a 10-inch tumor in the stomach.
Amazing.
And after that, after I had surgery, I developed a new character called Rabble Rouser.
Okay.
Which is an investigative.
Patrick, there's a lot of books you're plugging, man.
Yeah, that's my book.
No, don't. They deserve to be plugged. Go on, Pat.
I never thought I would write a book, but here it is. It's on Amazon. I'm not as best-selling as Jonathan Ives.
What's it called? Just one more time. What's it called? What's your book called?
Rabble Rouser Rising.
Beautiful. Rabble Rouser later. Patrick, thank you very much. I'll talk to you on WhatsApp later. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Okay. I do believe we've come to the iconic moment when the plaque is going to be unveiled on the inside, and some of you will get to take some photographs of it as well. Just before we do that, some people I would like to thank, of course. I'd like to thank Matherini of Camden Council. I'd like to thank, I'd also like to thank the wonderful Martha, who's helped to get all of us together, Nikki, and Jerome, and all the wonderful team at Camden. Also like to thank, of course, Simon Woodman, ladies and gentlemen, who, without him, we wouldn't have this plaque on this building. So a collective round of applause for everybody. Thank you. Right. We're going to do this, Madam Mayor. We're going to unveil the plaque, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do a little countdown. Those of you who've got phones, Twitter, TikTok, let's do this live around the world. We're going to do a little countdown, if I may. So, are we ready? Okay, 5, 4, 3, And there it is. What does it say? It says, I'm just going to have to nick this mic, don't we? So I can just borrow this mic so I can read it out. I know everyone can see what it says anyway. But it says, ladies and gentlemen, it does say, the first sermon on British soil by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, 1929 to 1968, was preached here at Bloomsbury Central Baptist Church on October 1961, and the 31st of October. And just to quickly say, ladies and gentlemen, Dexter King, who died, was also born in 1961, who's just recently passed away, and a wonderful holder of the King legacy. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We've just made history. More history is going to be made because we're going to install it outside, and we're going to be assisted by someone called Murray. He's a beautiful man, handsome man, signaling me for some money, it looks like. No, after you've put it up, mate, after you put it up. Okay, would you like to take some photos, Adrian? Please come forward. Okay, we're going to have the VIP Camden intelligence first. Do you want to read it out? I can't see it. Make it a bit bigger. Can I have
Jack,
the US ambassador?
I think we can say that the VIPs are going to be here, but if other people are starting to make their way downstairs, because downstairs is going to be starting,
Perfect.
I think we've got enough room downstairs for everybody to go down. So even if you've not got a wristband, you can still go downstairs.
Fantastic. Thank you, Simon. Sorry, Ambassador. Sorry, darling. Ambassador. Sorry, Ambassador. Sorry, madam. Sorry, Ambassador. Just one of the songs.
Yes, we're talking of
Yeah,
treading.
sorry. Yeah.